Good evening and welcome to the Quarry Valley Union School District Board meeting. It is April 12th, and if you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. A motion would be in order to approve the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Nate. And actually, I guess we should go over this first. Since we adopted Robert's rules for small boards, we don't require a second. And there was a big conversation at the SU level meeting about that. And the SU board is going to operate strictly under that, so they won't be requiring a second. So I'm going to try to do that tonight, and I already failed in the very first motion. But we had talked and thought that it's for the best that if the SU board is going to, and we did adopt Robert's rules for small boards, that we should all follow that rather than having different methods for each board. So I'm going to try to be really diligent about that and go through and mark off all the seconds that I've already put on my agenda and go forward. So a motion was made. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there any public present that would like to speak? We have no public with us here at central office.
It's her, Chris. It's her.
Okay, I think this might be a good point. I see Rebecca is with us and Katie with us from Pulteney. If you'd both.
Hi, sorry, you're cutting in and out on my computer.
Okay. Since we didn't meet you last meeting, I thought maybe you'd just both like to say hi to the board and just introduce yourselves to all the admin that are here in the meeting.
Hi, I'm Katie McWaters. I'm from Pulteney. I've got 4 kids that are currently homeschooled but have been in the school system in the past. I know some of you, not all of you, but yeah, hi.
Great, nice to meet you. And Rebecca?
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Gardner. I'm also in Pulteney. I have 2 sons, one in 3rd grade and at Pulteney Elementary and the other is in preschool. And so yeah, hi.
Great. It's nice to meet you both and we're glad you could join us this evening. All right, moving on to old business. This is something we missed discussing last meeting, that we just presumed that everyone was happy operating under this method of hybrid, but it wasn't a conversation that we had. And once again, at the SU meeting, we did have the conversation and we're really specific about it. So I just want to make sure people are still comfortable and okay with this method, operating under the hybrid, or if there are any concerns, or if there was people all want to come and join us here at central office.
I think we're happy to have the hybrid option. For those of us with little kids at home, it really helps. But I also advocate if people can get in the same room, it also helps, I think, make things go smoother sometimes, especially conversational discussions. So, as long as people feel comfortable and safe and can make it, the in-person option is usually the best in terms of having meetings, but having a hybrid is really handy too. So
Okay.
hopefully we can keep it.
Absolutely. but I just felt that it was important just to make sure and have the discussion. With respect to in-person meetings, Sarah?
Oh, I was going to follow up on that a little bit too and say that, if people feel like, I also find, hybrid enables me to actually be here on a regular basis. So I do want that to continue, but if people feel like in-person is like really important, there could be a strategy of designating a handful of once a quarter or even something like that where, folks try to make it in to the same room. So anyway, if that's of interest, I think there's, the possibility of playing with strategies like that as well.
Sure. And so that's going to kind of play into this conversation. We had spoken maybe February about starting budgets in July this year, that we're starting budgets early for a number of reasons. And in the discussion with Lewis and with Chris, different conversations, different times, we are going to only do the budget meetings in person at central office. And when we do budget meetings, it's only going to be about the budget. So we're not going to have a regular meeting and then do budget. It would just strictly be a budget meeting. So hopefully it wouldn't be as long. But I do think just in terms of confidentiality and those kinds of pieces, even though we haven't had necessarily any issues with executive sessions, I think it just for the safety component of that, it's better to have that. And as Kristen Ross said, budgets are very conversational, and it's certainly easier to do that in person. So hopefully people will be able to make those, and we'll be looking at putting some dates together for that, probably into May, something like that, to give people an opportunity. All right, moving on to new business. Is there any new business to come before the board? Approval of minutes. A motion would be in order to approve the March 21st, 2022 minutes.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mike. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey, Lisa, do we know who this unknown person is on the call?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thanks.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of warrants. You received the warrants via your GRCSU email. Katie and Rebecca, I'm hoping that you've received your GRCSU email and you're receiving information through that.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So warrants come through your email. Questions should be directed to Lewis. A motion would be in order to approve the warrants as presented.
Kristen Ross will make that motion to approve the warrants as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Superintendent's report. Chris?
Thank you, Lisa. I have a few items to discuss, and a lot of these items building principals will kind of expand upon during their principal reports. We are currently administering the SBAC assessments in all of our Quarry Valley schools. This Friday is the last day for that administration. I know I talked about this last night at the Rutland Town Board meeting because the last year's SBAC results are still embargoed to the public, so they have not yet been released. I know that is a bit frustrating for a lot of individuals because here we are, in mid-April, and we're still waiting for, results from last year to be released. But I think with COVID and just trying to look at how best to analyze data and take a look at what these mean and how best to report them on our report cards, they've taken a little extra time with that. But I do appreciate the patience of everyone. And as soon as we have those results, we will bring those before the board and public to discuss that. We also have been working with building level administrators on developing summer programming. I know that myself, Lewis, and Lisa met today to look at some of the proposals from some of our Quarry Valley administrators. I know that, last year, a lot of our schools did a nice job having some enrichment programs as well as academic programs for our kids. This is largely dependent upon staffing issues as well. And I say this, it is in no way to demean or make anyone feel bad. I think we're coming off 2 years, people are exhausted. I think summer's our time for a lot of people to re-energize, recharge, and I'm asking our admin team to take some time off this summer. They need a break. I'm asking our staff to take some time off as well. So there might be some impact in terms of some of the summer programming because teachers do need to take some time off and just to recharge, be ready to go in the fall. So as we look at our programs, we might see a bit of a scale back version this year, but we're still looking at across buildings how best to handle student needs as well. So, and like I said, we'll let our building administrators talk about that more during their principal reports. Excuse me. We also began discussion around graduation and end of year activities. I know that in conversations with each of our building administrators, we've already have some tentative plans around this in terms of what we're looking at. Obviously, the past couple of years, they've done a very nice job of, as they always have a nice community-based events, which really celebrate culmination of a student's academic careers in each of our schools. I think we'll continue to do that. Obviously, restrictions have been released this year, and we can look at go back to normal. But I think you'll see some practices that we've done in the past would be in outdoor ceremonies, and people will look to continue some of those things because they found it just to be a little more nice, as well as an opportunity to have more individuals be present at the program. So, like I said, each of the principals talked a little more about that, in their reports. And then as we look at prom and other end of the year dances, things along those lines, they can discuss that as well. So if you have questions, obviously can direct it back to them. I also want to just talk about, we discussed this at the beginning of the year, but our admin team for this past year has been attending with the University of Washington's Center for Educational Leadership, Instructional Leadership Program. It's a mouthful. But what we've been doing is, our admin team has been engaged in a series of meetings, whether we'll go to either up to Mount Abe to work with the Mount Abe staff, or Mount Abe will come down here 4 times a year. We've gone up to Burlington twice, and then once was a virtual. And there have been a lot of questions around what this program is, why are we doing this? And I know our admins have done a nice job of explaining this to their staff in terms of what this is, why we're going away for a couple of days. It really is about, improving our craft. And we look at, the single most important job that we have as administrators in our buildings is that of instructional leader. That we look at how we can best support our staff, in terms of instructional practices, in terms of their growth, and in terms, looking at student achievements. And as we've been meeting, and, the admin team's also meeting the admin PLCs, we've been really working on calibrating, in terms of feedback and what we're looking for, what we define as, effective practices, things along those lines. So I think the teachers have been great this year as we've gone in. It is anxiety filled for some teachers to see myself, an administrator, Lisa, an administrator, walk in, but it really has been about, it's for us. It's about, our administration, myself, Lisa, to, how we can do a better job being instructional leaders and how we can do a better job of supporting our staff. We think our staff does a phenomenal job. We just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to continue to support them and provide them the resources they need. And if we are going to be doing, walkthroughs or evaluations or observations, that it's feedback that's timely, it's relevant, and it's going to, it's sensitive to their needs, not just cookie cutter. So it's been a great program, but we were there last week, April 5th and 6th. There is a discussion as to whether or not we will continue with year 2. We're going to talk as an admin team about whether or not we want to continue this program, but regardless, we will still be continuing this year 2, either through admin PLCs or through this CEL program. And there are a few more informative pieces of information. We put the calendar back in, just sending our copy, and there also is a board meeting schedule for everyone to have as well. And the last thing I just wanted to touch upon was school meals will be provided for all students through the end of the year. I know you've probably heard some discussion about this in the papers around legislation, what's going to happen. There's been a lot of push to continue this program the following years. It's somewhat controversial in terms of how that would be funded, and I think that's the big concern is if we were to continue this, That would be kind of, to fund these meals for all families that would fall back on local budgets. We would lose the funding, the grant funding that we've had in the past. So we're kind of waiting to see what happens, but we do know that through the end of this year, that we will be able to provide meals for our families.
Okay.
Good.
It seemed like it was going through that. It was going to be for next year.
Legislatively?
Yeah.
It seemed like it was on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
seems
we-
like it's on the track. I
Right.
mean, I thought in the reports I've had, it's all but kind of the bow's been tied, so
Yeah, so we
hopefully.
wait till the final signatures on it before we start moving
Sure.
on that, so. Right.
And have we looked maybe like at colleges, Castleton, or even graduating seniors in different high schools about these summer enrichment programs, about even if they were more, I don't know, soccer based or, things like that, so we
Yeah,
can provide, some things. And I understand that, teachers absolutely need a break, but I'm just wondering, if you have, I don't know, students that are going into education from Castleton, if we did it, even if we did just the month of July, something like that, had some kind of program.
We are looking at all alternatives. I know that, and, like I said, we just saw a few approvals. And I think the ones that have come through have done a nice job of providing a lot of academic support, and,
Sure.
there's some enrichment. I do think we are going to look at, if, say, West Rutland's offering an enrichment program, how students from Poultney or Proctor can access that and, utilize that. So it won't be just for a building specific, it'll really be more
Sure.
of a Quarry Valley based. We will be looking at other individuals, other avenues, what we can and can't do, so.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, anyone have any questions for Chris? All right, moving on to principal's report. Top of the pile is Kristen.
Hi, could someone go ahead of me because I need to move because the dogs are barking. I'm really sorry.
Oh, I thought that was Jin's house. All right,
I'm so
well,
sorry.
we'll go on to Joe.
My dogs are barking. I'm happy to go in your place, Kristen, if you want. You may want to capitalize on it.
All right. Okay, Joe, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. Not a lot to add to the report. We just were finishing up with our SBAC test this week. Our teacher's been doing a great job trying to get everybody in and, do them during class time. And Tracy Gallipo is working on the stragglers. We have the week after break set aside for the ones that missed some time, but we're trying to get everybody in this week before break so we can get those done and then start on the MAPS test again in a few weeks here. But I'm just trying to go through my report here. Oh, we started some field trips, which is great. We're starting to we had a few field trips last week. Got a request for a junior high dance, which is, today signed off on that back in May to, our middle school kids haven't had a dance yet, our 7th and 8th graders. So, just kind of some of those things to get back going what we were doing before. So it's nice to see. And Jay, I don't know how our boys and girls did up against you guys today. And who knows, it's baseball and softball. Those games could still be going on right now. So our spring season opened up today. What a beautiful day for it. But, just everyone's kind of, doing a great job, and it's tough right now. A lot of mental health stuff that we're dealing with our students, but everyone's just hanging in there and trying to support our students the best we can. So I just want to thank my staff and everybody for doing that.
Sounds good. So I see you have senior class in here, so you're looking for some action from us. So everyone.
Yeah, I thought that was approved last month, but yeah,
Did we?
I didn't have the itinerary in last
Oh, yeah,
month.
we did approve it last month. This is just with the, okay, yep, that's right. It looks very nice. It seems like a fun trip to go on. All right, Kristen, you wanna give it another shot?
I will try. I'm locked in the mudroom right now, so please bear with me. I'd like to just welcome Rebecca and Katie. I do know you both, so I'm happy to have you join us. Thank you. I know it takes a lot of time. you have my written report, and I'd like to draw your attention to the first section because it has a lot of our upcoming dates and activities. So you will find them there as we continue to add them, or in case we need to change them, whatnot. It does say 6th grade trip, more details to follow. The plan again is the Bronx Zoo, and we don't know the exact departure time or return time, but they're working on that. I can tell you though, it's to the Bronx Zoo, Palisades Park for dinner, and home. So that's what we've got so far. You will notice that we're having our Memorial Day ceremony again this year. Thank goodness we get to have it. Very excited. That being said, I know Mr. Slentz has been our guest speaker before. You're welcome to join us. And if anyone knows of anyone else who's served in the armed forces, please have them reach out to me, because the more the merrier. Let's see. SBAC testing, as Superintendent Sell said, we're working on finishing them up as soon as we can. Kids have been working very hard, and just teachers are very flexible about schedules too, because we're taking groups and such. So I thank them for that. You'll notice in my report, I have the matrix for next year. We're working on the placement for it right now. We worked as we collaborated grades 3 through 6 to determine what was going to be the best configuration to make numbers equitable. So that's what we've got so far. Parent input forms did go home with the Rainbow Connection, and that is where parents are asked to tell us how their child learns best, and then we take that into account when we determine placement for next year's teachers. Last thing, I would also like to thank my teachers. Like Joe said, we've had a rough couple of weeks, I guess, spring fever, and just by teamwork, everyone banding together, it makes things a lot easier. So big shout out.
Great, thank you. Christy.
All right, good evening. My dog never barks, then he heard Kristen's dog's barking, so he's like freaking out in the background. Perfect, thank you, Kristen. Everyone, I hope you were able to read my written report. Just to note, I would like to thank all of our support staff. Last week was staff appreciation for our peer educators, so we hosted a breakfast. We had our special educators cover them in the morning from 8 to 8:45, and we had a big kind of family style breakfast for them, which was awesome. I so appreciate everything they do in our buildings for our students. So please give a shout out to our support staff. Excited to note we are having our flower show this year again at Proctor Elementary School. Yeah. So we will be having that at the end of May, and that is open to the community. All students participate, hopefully. The caveat is you have to have one live flower in your display. So the displays are different themes. We usually do like literature, sports, fantasy, sci-fi, fairy tales, things like that. But it is really neat, and the kids all love to participate. So I will send that notice out to all of you, so hopefully you can join us. And that's about it. We're planning end of year activities as well. Hoping we can get a confirmed date for the last day of school for students at some point, just so I can schedule my 6th grade promotion. We typically schedule it a day before we end the school year, so hopefully, I don't know if that decision's gonna be made tonight or not, but hopefully we can get that out fairly soon. And that's about it. Thank you.
Christy, that'll take place at the GRCSU meeting after break.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Actually, we're going to make them go to July 1st. Well, we're just going to try to get ahead of the curve. So next year when we have all the snow, they've already done the time. All right.
That sounds like a great idea.
I'm sure the parents won't be that upset. Jen.
So you have my report. Just a couple things that I wanted to highlight. We're finished up with our testing as well. And they're kind of this February to April break sprint that we like to do with assessments and midterms and all this other stuff. So we've been really trying to engage our students and improve the mental health and community-minded engagement And so we've been trying to integrate as much fun activities as possible. 2 events that are happening in the community this coming weekend. We have a basket raffle that is being hosted at the high school by our 9th grade class on Saturday. And then on Easter Sunday at 12 in the park, the senior class is hosting an egg hunt for the community if they would like to participate. I'm also looking for board approval for a field trip to the Great Escape, the mentor program, which is 12th graders that mentor 7th and 8th graders in the building and try to create connections with them, is looking to do like an end of the year celebration by going to the Great Escape as a group. So I would need board approval because it is out of the state.
Okay, questions for Jen? Any questions about the trip? Motion would be in order to approve the mentor program trip to the Great Escape. Is there a
I'll make
date?
that motion.
Do you have a
I'll
date,
second it.
Jen? No? Is there a date for that?
Is there a date? I haven't like allowed them to plan a date
Okay.
yet. It would be in June. I just want to come to for board approval first.
Okay.
Maybe date.
All right, so motion by Nate. Is there any discussion about the trip?
Will you send an itinerary out like Joe did? Yeah.
Well, I cannot be that fancy. I just don't know if I can do it, but I certainly will try.
About how,
I did not do that itinerary, so I'm just letting you know that was our class advisor, so I will not take any credit for that.
they're
Jen,
gonna write
is it a
a,
day trip or an overnight trip?
It's just a day trip. I plan to leave in the morning, head over on like just a regular bus, transit bus, come back probably around 4 or 5 at night.
okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, have a great time. Hope they don't get ill on a fast. All right, Jay.
All right, well, as if on cue, my dog has now arrived, but she will be quiet, I hope. And Joe, when I left, Pulteney softball was up on Our Ladies and our boys baseball team was up on yours. So, but there was plenty of game left in both of those. So good evening, everybody. I want to thank, first of all, our staff. They have been working, as many administrators have said, I don't know, spring fever, coming out of COVID. It's been a very busy and challenging few weeks. And the staff have been absolutely phenomenal. I cannot thank them enough. And Christy, acknowledging our support staff, thank you very much for doing that as well. So it has just been, it's been a busy couple of weeks. So I have included only some highlights on all the good things that are going on in West Rutland, SBAC, all sorts of things. I did put on 3 class trips that are needing board approval because they're leaving the state. I know Joe Harrington had forwarded the agenda for the overnight over to Lake George to Superintendent Sell. The others are day trips for the both guidance department and the music department. And the guidance department trip is actually being paid for completely by a VSAC grant. So we're thankful for their support as well. It's about a $1,600 field trip that they are picking up the tab on. So very thankful for them. So I do need approval because those are the 3 trips that are leaving the state. For those of you that were not with us last time, our senior class is doing a series of day trips and they will not be leaving the state. So, and I also have listed our fundraisers. One that was not listed and it was an accident is we are doing a Weber Grill raffle to support the athletic department. And that is the one addition that we have there. So But that is it. Lots of things going on, and I would be welcome to any questions that you may have tonight.
Any questions?
I have two.
Mike has a couple questions
Jay,
for
why
you.
is that an overnight trip?
The one for Great Escape,
Yes.
that is something that the parents and the students have, apparently it is tradition, that they have done a trip like that. And I think that that is something that they wanted to do with the children. And there seems to be a groundswell of support for that trip. I know I've got many, many chaperones going.
Okay. And on your staffing, what's the IA?
Individual assistants, individual aides, paraeducators.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, last thing, did you get a copy of the, from the select board last night?
I did not.
Okay.
All right, so we'll do that after we do the. If there's no objection, we could approve all 3 trips with one motion. So a motion would be in order to approve the guidance trip, the music trip, and the Lake George trip.
I'll motion
I'll
it.
make the motion. No, the,
Okay. Any discussion?
Made that motion?
What?
Made the motion?
Katie.
Katie.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes. So Mike had brought this in last night. The West Rutland Select Board made a proclamation to recognize the West Rutland Varsity Girls Basketball Team for winning the 2022 Division IV State Championship. And it's signed by the Select Board members. So it's very nice, and I'm sure you'll be getting a copy, Jay, and Superintendent Sells will get this copy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the support for both our trips and that proclamation from the select board. So thank you very, very much.
All right, moving on to personnel for contracts. We have a bevy of contracts recommendations ahead of us. So the first packet is for new hires. Is there any discussion about the new hires that are listed? And we have Elizabeth Colty with us this evening, who is the recommendation for Proctor Elementary principal.
I just wanted to say good evening, and I appreciate the board's recommendation and the time that it took to get through this process. And I'm looking forward to serving the community of Proctor and working with this part of the administration team.
Thank you. All right, a motion would be in order to approve the new hires as presented.
Kristen Ross, I'll make that motion as presented.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next grouping we have are for teacher CBA contracts for FY23, and there's about, I don't know, 3.5 pages of those. 4 pages, 3.5 pages. So a motion would be in order.
Kristen Ross, I'll make that motion to approve teacher contracts as presented.
Any discussion about the recommendations? All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next grouping is for support staff and CBA contracts for FY23. A motion would be in order as presented.
I'll make the motion again to approve support staff as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And the last grouping we have is extracurricular. A motion would be in order to approve as presented.
I'll move to approve this one and let Kristen off the hook.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next, that you should have a second packet for FY '23 non-union, about a page and forth. A motion would be in order to approve as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Got a question.
Discussion.
I don't know if we want to talk about this in public. or-
Well, so here, what is, because since it is personnel, would you like to move it to executive session?
I just see a discrepancy, so I just want to know what the reason is.
So, I think that would probably be a executive session, since it's gonna be a salary conversation. All right,
It doesn't have to be, it's not, I don't think it'll change the outcome if we vote on it. It's just an inquiry question, so I could ask that without us ever going through executive session now and then coming back and all that, so.
so you wanna vote on it and then have discussion about it?
Yeah, probably just a clarification. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna change, my question is gonna change it might change it, but I don't know.
Okay. So we're gonna move the FY '23 non-union to executive session. I think it'll be a brief conversation.
At the end?
Yes,
Okay.
at the end of the meeting. Okay? All right, moving on to committee reports. Communication Committee. Christine sent the meeting minutes out late this afternoon. Everyone should have received those via your GRCSU email. Did you have anything, Kristen Ross, that you wanted to share?
I actually couldn't make the last meeting,
Oh, okay.
so I'm wondering if I can put Sarah on the spot, because she was
Sure.
she was actually there.
Okay.
Yes, going to open the minutes just so I can make sure to hit the highlights.
No,
But I was there, and also our
Behind those.
new member Rebecca was there. And so some of it was sort of talking about the communication plan, asking some questions to sort of just get caught up to the background, since we're coming in, with a lot of work that's already been done on it. Let's see, trying to find that email. I'm failing miserably on the spot. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, cool. So we talked a little bit about, it was a lot of getting a lot of background. So, one of the things we talked about are there communication, are there related policies that were driving the communication plan? Would it make sense to pull all those policies together? Some other model communication plans we'd seen sort of had those policies included, just in the sense that to get a sense of what policies might be driving some of the plan that's put together. So that was kind of a conversation, and Greg mentioned that you might be able to pull some of those things together. In terms of the communication plan itself, got a lot of background, on the plan, we talked a little bit about, one of the questions that I had about the plan was whether it was purely informational in orientation, or whether there was, it was a plan that was meant to be operationalized or actionable. And if the latter was the case, was there some kind of, if the plan was sending out expectations, was there some way to understand if those expectations were going to be met? So I think that was a question that I brought up that we'll likely talk about in the next meeting when we've got more folks there. And we talked a little bit about also the app for connecting particularly coaches and folks who are kind of in that role. They're not deeply connected to necessarily the staff structure, but needing a way to communicate in sort of a more official channel. So talked a little bit about that. Again, didn't have everyone there for that conversation, so I think it's going to that conversation will continue. I raised some sort of asked some questions around whether there was a system or process for vetting apps that came up, sort of bubbled up through teachers or principals rather than the IT department itself, that looked at things like data privacy and accessibility. And talking about what it might look like to vetting applications for apps for those sorts of things, even if they're kind of bubbling up from teachers and principals in schools and things like that. So I don't know, I think that's the highlights. So a lot of just kind of, brainstorming, but having a lot of follow-up, I think, on these topics in the next meeting, which is scheduled for the end of April, April 27th. Okay. So I don't know if Rebecca, you want to add anything through there, or that's good enough?
I think you covered it, Sarah.
All right.
Sarah, for letting me put you on the spot too. I had a all-day meeting that day that I didn't know about until the day before. Yeah. So thank you for covering, and Greg, hopefully, I kind of put him on the spot too to lead the meeting. So hopefully we'll reconvene again. End of this month, we're going to meet right before the GRCSU meeting, I think. So.
Yeah. And thanks to Greg for doing a lovely job in leading that meeting.
All right. Thank you very much for that synopsis. All right, moving on to policies. We have a number of policies before us for second read. So I'm going to read all the second read. Oh, actually, are there any questions about any of the second read policies? So we have D8, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act compliance. D9, Family Medical Leave. E3, Tobacco Prohibition. E5, Travel Reimbursement. G7, Educational Support System. G8, Grade Advancement, Retention, Promotion, and Acceleration of Students. F14, Participation of Home Study Students. Special education. C3, school visits by board members. D2, professional development. E4, electronic communication use and retention. E1, safety security of school facilities. H2, community use of school facilities. F24, student freedom of self-expression. Oh, that's a first read. So H2 is the last second read. So motion would be in order to approve the second read policies.
I have a question about tobacco prohibition.
Well, can we make a motion and then have discussion?
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Yes, I'll make the motion.
All right. Any discussion about any of those policies?
I have a question about tobacco prohibition. Does
Okay.
that mean that at a sporting activity, say a soccer game, visiting parents are not allowed to use tobacco on the grounds? Is that because it kind of...
Correct.
Who enforces that?
Well,
If you're a proctor, it would be me.
you're right, Mike. That's right.
Well, you hope building administrators are on site, and
The only reason I say that, not because, is that if we got into a dust-up with somebody over it, that's the problem. If who sort of has the authority to say, hey, we shouldn't be doing this here, and if they do have the authority to tell somebody that, and the person comes back at them,
isn't it state law? You can't have tobacco products
It's state law on school
on school property.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So we would hope that the building administrator would just go and just have a quick conversation. They just would understand that, they could find, if they, want to find a place to smoke, it goes, finds a place to smoke and come back and then, but, I think that's where I think our building administrators have a good rapport with a lot of our community members, would be able to understand that it is a state law. It's just respect that, yeah.
Does that include vaping too, or is it just?
it's supposed to include everything.
Yep.
That's my question.
It says tobacco paraphernalia, tobacco substitutes.
And on E3, at the beginning, the first line, we will fill in Greater Rutland County Supervisor Union.
Right.
So we will take care of that.
And I guess the other piece is maybe we need to buy additional signs to post around. I know most schools do have those up that say no tobacco products, no smoking. But I mean, it's also been a couple of years since we've been out and about and on some of the property. So, if that's something we need to do, that's certainly money that's well spent, I think. So.
Yeah, if another parent were to say something to somebody who was visiting,
Yeah.
it'd be difficult for somebody.
Catherine?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just, when you just brought up the, maybe putting up some more signs, both of my sons play baseball, and last year at like 3 different games that were at Poultney Elementary School, there was a particular set of parents that was vaping, and a few of us other parents just, we very calmly just stated to them that, hey, we're not really supposed to use any sort of, tobacco vape product, whether it's tobacco, THC, whatever it was they were using. And I mean, they weren't happy with us about it, but they did make the comment, well, there's no signs over here. And, it's like, well, there is one at the entrance to the school, but maybe putting some, like, around, like, some dugouts or something, if that's possible, just so parents do see those, and visiting parents as well.
Sure. And I think it's, there are sometimes it's, it's always good, for ADs to put it when they send out about game schedules and things like that. I mean, one of the things I know that we've talked about, and one thing that we send out, no dogs are allowed at Turnovich Field. And so we make sure the AD sends that out. But, if they're coming from a public school, like we said, it is state law. So you'd think they, but I mean, I guess maybe they don't care. But I think that, that certainly, maybe have staff or buildings administrators or custodial staff maybe just do a quick, landscape and see, like, if you were new to the property and you walked on, does it say to you, no smoking or no tobacco products or
It might say,
whatever.
it might be worth, if we have new signs made, to put on school grounds rather than, because somebody may assume that you can't smoke in the dugout, but that doesn't mean you can't smoke over there. So if we put on the grounds, then
I'll have to look to
school-
see. I think some of the signs we do say on school.
Or maybe
property, I
even,
think.
or property, but.
or maybe even a reminder at the pledge, when, whoever's conducting the pledge may, the welcomer may
Sure.
say, just to remind people that,
Yeah,
Yeah. And that might be a habit after a while. People say, okay.
yeah. Kristen Ross?
So another piece is that it's, a good portion of athletics that goes on, at least in Poultney at the elementary school, because it's such a huge amount of land there, are not, it's not necessarily either during school hours, obviously in the evenings, or spring and summer when school's not in. So an AD is not necessarily, first of all, it's elementary school, we don't have an AD. So in other words, is there a way to send out with any kind of information that's going out for community leagues of any sort, that we could have that kind of information in there? Just a reminder, whatever our policies are, right? Whether it's about animals on school grounds or facilities or tobacco products or firearms or whatever it is. Because sometimes it's parent groups getting together to coach, and so they're not, obviously they're not in support of violating any policies, but they're also not staff. they're supervising kids and their behavior, but they're not necessarily paying attention to what the parents are doing along the sidelines. So we do have use of our grounds when an AD or a principal or building administrator may not, be there.
Right, so if they're filling out.
Signs and increased communication in that sense.
Sure. And if community groups are using the property, they should be filling out facility use agreements to be on the property, and that should certainly say that in the facility use agreement. But, I mean, I think maybe it's a good idea, like Mike said, to look and see about purchasing signs that say on school property or on school grounds or something like that. Some of us play at facilities that are off school property. We play on municipal property and things like that. And when I spoke about the AD, Kristen, because Pulteney Elementary is a softball field, so you do have high school kids go there. So the AD I meant in terms of sending it out to other schools. So, Jay?
Yeah, thank you. I normally don't interrupt a discussion. I just wanted to let folks know VSBIT, so the Vermont Insurance Trust, does have signs that they have sent out over the last few years. They're big metallic signs. The intent is to be installed on school property. So if I'm just trying to also look at the bottom line, that while the board may eventually want to look at signs, we may actually have some of those on reserve because they were quite generous in the amount of signs they sent. So it might just behoove building principals to take a look and see if extras were there and where they're mounted. Just thinking that I know I received like 5 for my last building. So just had to put that out there.
And the qualification in here says school grounds are a school-sponsored function. So technically, if they went to somebody's field that wasn't a school property, it was a school-sponsored function that should still cover it. And that might be where the rub comes with some people. Saying, well, you don't usually play here, it's not your field, you can't tell me what to do. If the school sponsors it, then it should be covered under that.
Sure.
So we'll look at, as Jay said, we have VSBITs. I know that when we receive the shipment each year, we send them all out to the buildings.
Right.
And and some will put them up, some will put them in reserve because they already have signs up from prior years. But we can look at additional signs if needed, but also look at communication with our communities and with our groups.
And it might be a good thing also just to put on newsletters, websites like that, since we are starting, to have more outdoor activities now with ball games and things like that. So, just as a friendly reminder, it doesn't hurt. So.
Does that also cover trips?
Trips? Well, I mean, they're not allowed to smoke on trips. I mean, what do you mean?
But off hours, if the parents or the chaperones are at the hotel that night,
So if students on a trip, the code of conduct or the expeditions travel with them where they go. So like if a high school group is going away, so.
So like George,
the very same rules that apply in a school facility apply that wherever they're at. So yeah.
And you have to sign, like when we went on the 6th grade trip, Christy had a thing that we signed that you were aware of that, so. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any more discussion over the second read policies? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And for our first read policies, we have F24, Student Freedom of Self-Expression in School-Sponsored Media. D4, Volunteers and Media Study Students. E2, School Crisis Prevention and Response. F9, Admission of Non-Resident Tuition Students. G6, Complaints about Instructional Material. D7, Harassment of Employees. A1, Role of Policy. F15, Student Attendance. F16, Use of Restraint and Seclusion. G9, Responsible Computer Network and Internet Use. And if you have any concerns or questions about the first read policies, Eric is the chair for the policy committee, So it's good to send him any questions or comments.
Eric Mount Bryan, for some of them who don't know who Eric is.
Oh, yeah, Eric Montbryan, and his name would be on the GRCSU website. He is the chair of Well Springs. But it's good just to send to him prior to it coming back to us for a second read, because it's going to other boards. So if you have a particular question or concern about it, just to send to him so they can have a discussion within committee, or maybe he can explain why it is or why it isn't. He's, they're doing a lot of policy work, so. All right, moving on. Lewis, is Lewis still with us? Yeah. Monthly financials. Oh, Lewis, outside. At a softball game, Lewis?
I am at the Pulteney West Rutland game. West Rutland girls won. Pulteney boys are leading in the bottom of the fifth, 10-6.
All right.
I don't have anything to report on finance tonight, but I'll take any questions if there are any.
Okay. What about the vans? Where are we on that? We have any update on that?
The SU vans are still being built.
Okay.
There's we don't have an ETA on those right now.
Okay.
Probably another couple months. Our hope is to have them in service by the start of the next school year.
Okay. All right, so there's nothing for us, no big red flags, nothing to be concerned about, everything's great.
Everything is, I will provide an update on the forecast at the next meeting.
Okay.
But as of the last forecast, we are running a surplus, and I don't anticipate that changing.
All right. Any questions for Lewis? All right, thank you. Enjoy the game.
Thank you.
All right, the next meeting is May 16th. You have in your packet, just for information, the GRCSU school calendar for next year and the board meeting schedule. Any questions about those?
Well, on the board meeting schedule still lists the schools.
Right, it says schools? Yeah, I think she just said that in case. That was one reason we had the discussion tonight, that we wanted to stay at hybrid.
Yeah. So that might need to be adjusted, especially if that's for the public to understand where it's at.
Yeah, the public doesn't see this.
Yeah,
this is more just for our purposes.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, this is just internal.
Okay. Well, for our purpose.
Yeah, well.
She'll update that on the website calendar, where that'd be, so.
Make it easier for it.
Okay. All right, a motion would be in order to move into executive session at 7:22 for executive session.